Hey, everyone, and welcome. Today's deep dive is something, well, it's a topic that could really impact any of us, drug rehab.
Mm,
It's about those times when, life throws a curveball
right.
and you or someone you love needs help navigating addiction. And we're not going to sugarcoat it. This stuff can be, well, it's complex
Yeah,
and honestly kind of intimidating.
for sure.
So to help us all make sense of it, all these treatment options and even some cutting edge approaches, we're diving deep into Rehab Near Me. They're like, I don't know.
They're like the experts.
Yeah, they're the map makers of the addiction treatment world.
I like that.
Okay, so you might be thinking addiction. It's all about willpower, right? Like, just get it together.
I'll get ready for a perspective shift.
Ooh, I like it. All right, lay it on me.
So what's fascinating here is that science actually paints a very different picture.
Okay.
Addiction, it's not a character flaw, it's a chronic disease.
Really?
Yeah, just like diabetes or heart disease. It
Okay.
actually hijacks your brain chemistry,
Oh, wow.
making it incredibly hard to just, flip a switch and stop.
So willpower alone isn't enough.
Sadly, no, not usually, which is why rehab is so important, right?
Right. It's that helping hand. Okay, so tell me more about what Rehab Near Me says about the different kinds of centers out there. Like, what are we talking about here?
Well, it's not a one-size-fits-all situation, that's for sure,
Okay.
which is why there's honestly, kind of a surprising variety of rehab centers.
Okay.
Some people need that really immersive 24/7 support,
Yeah, like that safety net.
Exactly, especially early on. And that's where inpatient rehab comes in.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's about, creating a totally safe space to detox and begin healing.
Yeah, to just focus on healing. That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. Especially, I've heard that detox itself can be really challenging.
It can be tough, yeah.
But then there's outpatient rehab too, right?
Correct.
For people who maybe can't, put their entire lives on hold.
Absolutely. Outpatient programs offer way more flexibility.
Oh, yeah.
So individuals can, maybe keep working or going to school, taking care of their family responsibilities, all while still getting treatment.
Wow, it's amazing how much it's like, I don't know, almost like choosing your own adventure in recovery.
In a way, it is. And just like those adventure books,
Yeah.
the right path, it's going to be different for everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
Individualized care is absolutely paramount.
100%. Okay, now this next part, this is what really got me curious. Rehab Near Me mentions these luxury and holistic rehab centers.
Oh, yeah.
What's the deal with those? They sound intriguing.
Right. Well, okay, picture this. A rehab center that feels more like, I don't know, a high-end retreat.
Okay.
We're talking like spa-like amenities,
Oh, wow.
gourmet meals, maybe even a private chef in some places.
Shut the front door.
That's what some luxury centers are going for.
So it's like about easing the process, but in an environment that feels, I don't know, less clinical, more,
More luxurious.
exactly. Okay, but what about the holistic centers? What makes them stand out?
Holistic centers, well, like the name suggests, embrace this whole person approach. So they'll integrate traditional therapies, but also things like yoga, meditation, acupuncture, art therapy.
Interesting.
It's about treating the mind, body, and spirit all together,
I'm feeling more zen just hearing about it.
Right.
Okay, but let's get real for a moment. No matter how luxurious or zen a center might be, what actually happens during drug rehab? What can someone expect when they walk through those doors?
So typically the first hurdle is detox.
Oh.
And this isn't always easy.
Yeah.
Detox is where your body's basically purging itself of the drug.
Right.
And that process, well, it can lead to some pretty uncomfortable withdrawal symptoms.
And those symptoms, if I'm remembering correctly from the source, can be pretty rough, right?
Yeah, they're not kidding around about that.
Okay.
We're talking potential nausea, vomiting, insomnia.
Oh,
It really runs the gamut, depending on the substance used and the person's history with it.
Yeah.
It's rarely a walk in the park, that's for sure.
yeah. Which is why having medical supervision during detox is so important, right?
You got it. Medical professionals are there to monitor your symptoms,
Okay.
provide medication to manage any discomfort, and most importantly, make sure you're safe throughout that whole detox process.
Okay. And how long does that usually take?
That phase usually lasts, I'd say, a few days to a few weeks.
Okay.
Again, depending on the individual, and what substance we're talking about.
Right. Makes sense. So let's say you've cleared that detox hurdle. What happens next? What comes after that initial phase? Rehab Near Me mentioned a bunch of different therapies. I'm curious to dig into those.
Think of it kind of like the construction phase of recovery.
Wow.
Detox, it clears the wreckage, so to speak. And now it's time to rebuild.
I like that visual.
Right. And that's where therapies like talk therapy and behavioral therapy come in.
Rehab Near Me really dives into those.
Yeah, they're key players for sure.
So talk therapy, I'm guessing that's pretty self-explanatory. You talk, you process, you heal.
You got it. It's all about working with a therapist, could be one-on-one or in a group,
Right.
to really explore like the root causes of the addiction, work through any past trauma, and then start to develop those healthier coping mechanisms.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Mm.
But what about behavioral therapy? That sounds a bit more, I don't know, action-oriented.
Yeah, exactly. Behavioral therapy is all about identifying and then actually changing those negative thought patterns and behaviors that, contribute to the addiction.
Okay.
Like, for example, let's say someone is struggling with alcohol addiction, right? And they always go to the same bar after work.
Oh, that's such a classic trigger.
It is, right?
Yeah.
So behavioral therapy would help them, one, recognize that as a trigger, and then two, develop alternative routines, healthier ones, of course.
So it's about rewiring those, like,
Mhm.
deeply ingrained habits and replacing them with ones that actually support their recovery.
Exactly. You said it better than I could.
That's fascinating. But what about medication in all of this? I know Rehab Near Me touched on that too. Is medication always part of the picture?
Not always, but it can be a really valuable tool for some. It's called medication-assisted treatment, or MAT for short, and frankly, it's an area often clouded by misunderstanding and stigma.
Really? Stigma around using medication for addiction treatment. I'm curious, why do you think that is?
It's tough because there's this misconception that it's just replacing one substance with another.
Right, you're right.
But the reality is, for some people, medication can be a lifeline. It can help manage those intense cravings, reduce the risk of relapse, and just provide that much-needed stability so they can really focus on the therapeutic aspects of recovery.
So it's about viewing medication as a tool, just like you would with, I don't know, any other chronic illness.
Exactly.
The source mentioned methadone and buprenorphine as examples. Are those commonly used in MAP?
They are, especially for treating opioid addiction. Methadone has actually been around for decades.
Oh, wow.
And the research on its effectiveness it's really substantial.
Yeah.
Buprenorphine is another one that we're seeing more and more, and it's showing a lot of promise.
Okay.
It basically helps ease those really agonizing withdrawal symptoms, giving people a fighting chance to, actually engage in therapy and start rebuilding their lives.
It sounds like MAT Tree is really all about, like, giving people the best possible shot at sustainable recovery, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, we've talked about detox, therapies, medication.
Mm-hmm.
What about the support system after someone leaves rehab? Like, what happens then?
That's a crucial piece of the puzzle. Recovery, it's not a finish line, It's a lifelong journey. And that journey requires ongoing support. That might look like, I don't know, attending support groups like, Narcotics Anonymous, Smart Recovery, maybe continuing individual therapy, or even living in a sober living environment for a while. It really depends on the person and their needs.
So it's about building a network, a community of support.
Exactly. Surrounding yourself with people who get it.
Yeah, who understand.
Who understand those daily struggles of addiction and recovery.
Right, because they've been there.
Exactly. People who can offer encouragement, accountability, and just a listening ear without judgment.
Which is so important.
So important. And Rehab Near Me really emphasized that sense of community as a key factor in long-term success, which makes a lot of sense.
It really does. It makes you realize how multifaceted recovery truly is.
It's a process.
It is. It's not just about willpower or even the time spent in a rehab facility. It's so much bigger than that. It's about addressing, like, every aspect of a person's life.
Yeah.
Their physical health, their mental well-being, their social connections, their environment. It's about creating a life where they can truly thrive.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's about empowering individuals to, rebuild their lives from the ground up.
Right.
One day at a time. And that often means navigating challenges and setbacks along the way because, let's face it, recovery isn't always linear.
That's a really important point. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. Which brings us back to something we talked about earlier, finding a treatment center that's the right fit. Rehab Near Me really gave us a glimpse into the diverse landscape of treatment centers out there. And it's so clear that what works for one person might not work for another.
Oh, absolutely. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. And that's why, doing your research, asking those tough questions.
Being your own advocate.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Advocating for your needs or the needs of your loved one, that's essential.
So For someone listening who might be feeling, I don't know, a little overwhelmed trying to make sense of all of this, what are some, like, key things to consider when looking at different treatment centers? Where do you even start?
Well, I'd say first and foremost, check their credentials.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Are they accredited, licensed?
Hmm.
You want to make sure you're dealing with a reputable facility with qualified professionals. From there, it's about getting like really specific about your needs and preferences.
Yeah, what are your must-haves?
Exactly. Do they offer inpatient or outpatient programs? What kind of therapies do they specialize in? Do they have experience treating, your specific addiction? These are all important questions.
It's about finding a program that aligns with your goals, your values, your comfort level, the whole picture.
Precisely. Don't be afraid to ask about their success rates, their aftercare programs, the qualifications of their staff. You're interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's about taking ownership of your recovery journey right from the start.
100%.
Now, I know we touched on this earlier, but the source briefly mentioned these cutting-edge treatments using psychedelics. Is that what I think it is?
It is.
Whoa. And how does that even tie into everything else we've been discussing?
It is what you think it is, and it might seem like we're going down the rabbit hole here, but yeah. Researchers are exploring the potential of substances like psilocybin.
Like magic mushrooms.
Exactly, magic mushrooms, but also MDMA, ecstasy, even LSD.
Wow. Okay.
But, and this is key, in controlled therapeutic settings for treating addiction.
Okay, so we're definitely not talking about recreational use here.
Yeah.
So how could these substances possibly help someone who's struggling with addiction?
Think of it this way. Addiction, it often gets, like, wired into our brains, right?
Like, ingrained.
Yes, through these deeply ingrained thought patterns and behaviors. And psychedelics, when used in a therapeutic context, they have the potential to disrupt those patterns.
Huh.
Some studies even suggest that they might do this by promoting neuroplasticity, basically, helping the brain rewire itself. And they can also enhance emotional processing, which is huge.
So is it like hitting a reset button on those hardwired addictive pathways?
It's a bit more nuanced than that, but yeah, you're on the right track. One theory is that psychedelics can induce these really profound, almost mystical experiences
Okay.
that can really shift a person's whole perspective. It's like they're seeing themselves and their addiction from this totally different angle, which can be incredibly powerful when it comes to, motivating change.
It sounds like we're talking about some pretty profound shifts in perspective here. This is all very new, though, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like still experimental.
Very much so. And it's really important to emphasize that this research is still in its early stages.
Right.
While the preliminary findings are, they're promising. We need more. We need those large-scale, long-term studies to really fully understand both the potential benefits and the risks.
Of course, yeah.
But the initial results, I gotta say, they are definitely generating a lot of excitement, and rightfully so.
It's pretty mind-blowing to think about the potential here. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today in this deep dive. Different types of rehab centers, the detox process, all those different therapies,
Yeah.
the role of medication, the importance of ongoing support, and now this whole fascinating frontier of psychedelic-assisted therapy.
That's a lot.
It really is, and it's been so insightful. But of course, this deep dive, it shouldn't replace professional guidance, right?
Absolutely not.
If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, reaching out to a healthcare provider or a treatment center, that's the most important first step.
Couldn't agree more. Think of this deep dive as your springboard.
I like it.
Your springboard for further exploration, and really, most importantly, for taking action.
Well said. Thank you so much for taking us on this journey today. And to our listeners, thank you for diving deep with us. Keep those questions coming, keep exploring, and most importantly, keep believing in the power of recovery. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.